Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
You know, I've been doing this work for 45 years. And over that time, I invented my own technique. I began to find out new things that came in that nobody else had ever discovered. So big and so important, so we called it QHHT, because it's way beyond past life regression. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years. Well, as part of this technique, the very first thing that you do is take the client into a past life. Past life is just the very, very beginning. Then we go to this great power that I work with. To please take advantage of the training that is now available online. You can find it through my website, dolorescannon.com.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now listening to the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Danielle MacKinnon. Now, Danielle is a leader in the intuitive coaching and the soul contracts area. Danielle challenges people to rethink how they view themselves and their strengths and weaknesses, combining her intuitive skills with her unique ability to connect with the soul. Danielle continues to lead thousands of people through their challenges into a world of possibility and brilliance. Danielle will share how she first learned about soul contracts through her animal communication work. Now, soul contracts can have hidden promises and energetic barriers lodged deep in your soul, which block the way to true happiness. Born out of despair, fear, pain, or anger, a soul contract is an unconscious promise that you've made with yourself in the past that is now blocking your path and hindering your ability to move forward and live your brilliant life. Soul contracts will teach you to understand, master, and release those hidden blocks that are standing in the way of love, happiness, and success. Danielle MacKinnon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you on. And just tell the audience a bit about your background. I mean, were you always intuitive?
I was always intuitive, but I didn't know it. So I was weird is what I was. I was the kid who I never felt like I fit in. I loved animals. I was very sensitive. My mother did not know what to do with me because I had a hard time in crowds. And she had no idea, and I had no idea until much later that it was because I was intuitively picking up information and intuitively connecting with animals. I do remember saying to my mom, I know what my hamsters are thinking, and my mom saying, no, she was just so fed up, like, no, you don't, Danielle. It's okay. There I am, trying to kind of talk me down because I was saying they weren't happy. And it was kind of like that growing up for a good 10, 15 years. And then I went into high school, and, in high school, all you want to do is fit in. And I was still really super sensitive there, but I tried to cover it up. In college, same thing. But in college, I started dabbling. in meditation, in different ways of eating, and just mindfulness. I started looking at this stuff, and I was finally away from my family who didn't believe in other ways. You know, they did their way. They did things their way. And it was really after college that I jumped in and branched out.
Yes, absolutely.
But I never meant to.
Now, you've got a lot of information that's in your book that I've not come across before. And, you know, would you say that some of this information is channeled?
You know, I began this in the intuitive world as an animal communicator. Took me a while to accept, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be, I left the corporate world and did this animal communication stuff. And it was actually through, I'm not going to call it channeled because it wasn't channeled. It was through the animals that, and doing my work with the animals, that I got all my information. So I would work with an animal and a human, and the animal started educating me. And the animal started explaining about the connection between animals and humans, and the connection of why that animal was doing X, Y, and Z. And I started learning through those individual experiences. And as I accepted, because each time I learned something new, I said, no, that's not right. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. Nobody else is doing that. And so I would reject it. But once it had happened enough times, I would finally give in. And then the animals would say, great, now let's do the next part. So it really, I really kept going in that way. And then when I got to the point where I was writing my book on soul contracts, I had already done all of this work with animals. The animals had shown me about soul contracts. And then while I was writing the book, even more information came in. And that came in like, you know, I'd be sleeping, and then I'd wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. I have to write. And I would just want to write all this stuff out. So I'd write like a chapter of the book. And then that day I would work with private clients, and everything in that chapter would pertain to everything that those private clients needed. So everything that I've done so far, it's all kind of tried and tested, because it's like learn and go and learn and go and learn. It's all through experience. Does that make sense?
It does. So you know, like you said there, you'd be sleeping, and all this awareness, this information would come to you. But
yeah, because that's the time I was the least resistant. You know, throughout the day, I still had this thing about, I want to be like everybody else. I want to be normal. I want to be a regular animal communicator. I want to be a normal intuitive or psychic, you know, which is kind of funny, because does anybody really consider psychics to be regular people? Probably not. But I thought, well, I want to be, you know, mainstream psychic. And so when I would go to sleep, or when I would be in the shower, I'm kind of just relaxed. I'm not resisting. I'm not planning. I'm just sleeping or hanging out in the shower. And that would allow intuitive information to come in. And then I had to write it down. It was pretty cool, actually. 1 week I wrote 22,000 words. I think my book's only 70,000. The average book is only 60 to 70,000. And I wrote 22,000 in 1 week, because I kept going, oh, I got to write this. Oh, and it was a really cool experience. It was actually super easy to write my book for that reason.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, well, yeah, but then you say, you could also say, well, that wasn't me writing that book. There was something else coming through me at that time. And what was that? That's what I'm trying to say to you.
I look at it as intuition, as my guides are giving me information, directing me, and I'm putting it to paper.
Right. So
I'm not a channel, or I've done channeling a couple times, but I haven't found it to be my thing, unless waking up in the morning with all this information that I had to write out. You know, I guess you could consider that channeling. I don't know. It seems weird. It seems weird to think of that as channeling. I like to have a little bit more credit.
But it's almost like, you know, lost knowledge brought forward. And did you mention, you know, your guides there as well? Yes.
So, I write with my guides. My guides direct me on where to go, what works and what doesn't work. Doesn't mean that I listen to them all the time. Now, when I was writing the book, I heeded that I listened to them much better than usual. But I still, even to this day, will get intuitive information and resist it at first. and then finally open up to it. It's just, I guess it's just the way I work. I resist, open.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well,
it's
that's
not the most spiritual way to be, I'd say.
I think it's a human experience.
Yeah, that's the human part of me.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That does. And I'm sure it'll make sense for the audience where this has come from, because normally someone that's intuitive, it's sort of loving messages in a sense. I'm sure they've come through, but this information's more than that.
Yeah, this is like some of the stuff in the book I didn't know until I sat down to write the book. And then it started, all this information, it all came, it's like things clicked together in such a cool way. And every day since I've written those words, I've been using every single piece in that book. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the way that this information comes through and the way it works.
Yeah, and I there isn't anybody else. It's literally new information. There isn't anybody else out there who has that information. It would be comforting if somebody else did, because otherwise now I'm kind of hanging out there with, hey, this is this new thing I've brought forth. But that's where I am.
Well, I think it can only put credibility on your work.
Yeah. And it's also scary.
Well, it's bound to be, but then, if you're not going to have that rational mind, then, that balances you out.
Right. Yeah.
So, and some people who, there's some information in the book that has come out before, but there's a lot of it that is new, which I always find fascinating stuff. So with the soul contracts then, okay, we all have soul contracts with our pets. Let's start there first.
Okay. Yeah, and this is the first part of what I learned before I started writing the book. This is what the animals taught me, that there's a connection between you and your pet, between you and every animal that you come in contact with in some way, where that animal is behaving in a certain way or doing something so that you feel a certain thing in order to help your soul evolve.
So
kind of crazy.
It is. So yeah. No, it's kind of cool as well at the same time, because it does make a lot of sense. So when, for example, we've lost a pet and we think we've done our best for that pet, you're able to connect to that pet, for example, and just for some loving information to come through to say, look, you did do your best, and this was our contract that we had together.
Yeah. Yeah, I would use animal communication. I would contact the pet on the other side and let the pet say whatever he or she wanted to say about, hey, here's how I was helping you. Here's why I had to pass at this time. That's a big deal, actually. People whose animals pass, a lot of them will come to me and say, I just don't know if it was the right time. I don't know if I did the right thing. And what they don't understand is that animal chose when they were going to pass, how they were going to pass, why they were passing at that time. That animal knew all of that. And all of that was based on what was going to help that human the most to evolve their soul.
Wow.
Animals are here to help us evolve our souls. And they help us on an individual level. Like my dog Tuka, she is assisting me. We have an animal soul contract together. And then they also help us in a general level. So right now, like on Facebook and Twitter and Time Magazine and all these places online, they're all showing the hot thing right now is videos of animals that wouldn't normally get along getting along, or animals doing cool things, or animals rescuing. And this is animals working at a bigger level on an animal soul contract, again, to help human souls evolve.
So in your opinion then, Danielle, what about pet neglect or abuse? Has that been chosen?
Yeah. It's, I don't like that part, but that's what they've told me. So an animal who is suffering in order to give that human an opportunity to evolve. And that is the hardest part. And so what I've had to do is kind of understand that, well, what do? I see this elephant suffering, or I see this dog suffering. I don't like it. I want to do something. Maybe the particular human related to that animal won't evolve right then, but maybe I can help in some way that others who get to know that animal will evolve and bring that animal out of the suffering.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have contracts in which they choose. So it's not put together exactly how each animal will carry out each contract. So the elephant who's suffering, it wasn't decided beforehand, before they were in body, that this elephant would suffer in this lifetime. But it was decided that this elephant will help so-and-so evolve and so-and-so evolve, or help human consciousness evolve, or whatever it is. How it's carried out is still up in the air. But a lot of animals are choosing the suffering route because that's how we as humans learn, right? When everything's awesome, we don't make change. But if our heart is moved because this animal is suffering, and then we can do something, we open our heart and we help, that's us evolving, and that's helping the animal out of that.
Absolutely. And I suppose free will does play a role in there as well.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's not a set thing. It's not set that this animal will suffer. It's set that this animal will help to teach. And then as that animal goes through his or her life, it's decided, the animal decides, okay, what's the best way to do this? And for a lot of animals right now, it is to suffer. But so many are being rescued. They're waking people up, and people are just running to rescue various animals. And I'm not just talking dogs and cats. I'm talking horses and cattle and cows. There's such a cool rescue organization right now. They just rescued a cow who had his hoof torn off, and the farm where he was just letting him have no hoof, and he was miserable and he was sick, and they rescued him. They brought him to their sanctuary. He's getting a prosthetic limb now. What a cool story. And so many people know about this through social media. Look at that cow's soul contract to help open the hearts of all of these people who know about him.
No, I mean, it's so loving and so incredible as well.
Yeah, that cow, I have a special place in my heart for that. Well, for all animals, but especially that one cow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with our pets as well, do you think the veil is a lot less on them? Do they understand where they've come from and where they're going to?
Yeah, so what I've learned from them is that there are two levels of work that animals do. They're the physical level, which is where we've got our dog who loves us, who barks, who plays, who maybe wants a brother, all of that kind of stuff. And that's the level where most people put animals. But there's another level, and it's the soul level. This is the level where they're in contact with other animals, other people who have passed. This is the level where they know the big picture. This is the level where they go, all right, I'm gonna suffer here, I'm gonna sacrifice here, or I'm gonna do this crazy behavior here in order to help them evolve. That deeper level is what more and more people are beginning to open up to. It's not just about that companionship, but it's about this unconditional love that these animals hold. So they have such a much stronger connection with the other side than we do. And when we start tapping into that soul level, we're more easily able to connect to that other side as well. It makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just very beautiful because pets are very dear to me as well, and my family, and I know to my friends, and yeah, you can see everything you're saying. It's all just a mirror in a sense, and that's just a wonderful part of it. So this led you working with animals to get into discovering soul contracts in a sense. So just very briefly again, what is a soul contract in your understanding?
So it led me reluctantly to get into soul contracts because I resisted that whole thing too. What was happening was I was connecting with animals and their humans, and the animal was saying, hey, I'm going through this experience to help my human evolve, and this is the soul contract. So I'd be like, all right, and I would tell the person. But what the animals started doing is they started saying, now, Danielle, you need to go work with that person on their soul contract. I'd never heard, I think I'd vaguely heard the word soul contract, but it wasn't anything that I knew anything about. And what happened is the animals started teaching me that we all have these individual soul contracts that we put in place in order to cover up deep negative beliefs that we have about ourselves. And we don't realize we have these beliefs because we have these soul contracts in place that are supposed to make everything better. The thing is, they don't make everything better. They tend to become what people call blocks or repeated patterns or sucky parts of their life. Does it make sense?
No, it does. It does. It does. Okay, so when you're basically helping someone to discover their soul contract, is this intuitively done?
So I do it intuitively because I can. That's just what I can do. That's my thing. But I also show people how to do it as well. But once you know what to look for, it's actually very easy because all you have to do is look for the places in your life where you're blocked. And no matter what you've tried, you keep coming back to the same behavior or the same experience. Like the woman who keeps choosing the man as her partner who treats her badly, cheats on her, and just expects her to cook dinner for him and be subservient to him. And then the woman gets out of that relationship and she chooses the same guy again, but maybe a blonde guy this time, but the same thing. So soul contracts are that place, are that pattern within you where you are finding yourself over and over again doing the same thing, even though intellectually you know that it's not serving you. Does that make sense? So I can look at someone and go, okay, we've got this soul contract, that soul contract, that soul contract. That's easy for me to do, but I don't want people to just have to come to me to do that because it's incredibly disempowering. I want people to understand what's really going on here and be able to do it for themselves.
Yeah, and there's so many variations of soul contract. But just as you were saying there about the abusive relationships, in a sense, what have you found is the underlying reasons for why women, who are very strong, go into these abusive relationships, controlling relationships?
So there's not one reason, but I'll give you an example of a popular reason. So a lot of women will feel that they are not good enough. That's their deeply held negative belief. And as a result of that, they create soul contracts. And the soul contract could be something like, well, in order to stop myself from feeling this deeply held negative belief, what can I do? What can I achieve to stop myself from feeling not good enough? Well, one of the things a lot of women will choose, and a lot of spiritual people as well, light workers I find choose this as well, is they'll choose a soul contract of overgiving. And overgiving is the idea where I'm going to give and help and be there for everybody else. I'm going to do this so well that somebody's going to notice what a good person I am, and they're going to make me see and feel what a good person I am. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes.
It's a really popular one, especially in these relationships where you keep getting into a relationship with a guy where it's not working. You're not receiving in the relationship. There's also the soul contract of overgiving, of martyrdom, sacrifice, suffering. Really, really popular ones. If I sacrifice for this man, he's going to see what a good person I am, and then I'm going to feel like a good person. So it's always about I have to do something, achieve something, avoid something in order to massage, in order to cover up this negativity that I have within. Making sense?
Yes, and this negativity has been, brought in from a past life? Or would you say it's what the soul has chosen to experience in this incarnation? So it's kind of chosen that limitation. It's been born with that limitation purposefully? So
what I've learned through my experience in working with all these people and animals and everything is that we have soul lessons that we're supposed to learn in each lifetime. So one of the soul lessons that I personally have been working on is believing that I'm good enough. I had that I'm not good enough negative energy. So I came in with this soul lesson kind of programmed in. Danielle, you're supposed to work on believing that you're good enough. So it means that I kind of had like a proclivity toward experiences that would help me learn this lesson. Now what happens is, as a child, is when these negative beliefs usually begin. I experienced some things that made me go, I really think I might not be good enough. I was already had a leaning there, remember, because my soul lesson is around that same idea. But now I'm experiencing some things and I'm starting to believe that I'm not good enough. So that's when it ends up getting formed early on in our life. But it's so early on in our life. And there's stuff that comes over from past lives as well, because I could have been working on I'm not good enough for several lifetimes. But what I tell people when they're doing this type of work of understanding themselves and wanting to move forward is kind of like, let's put the past life stuff aside for now, because we have more access to all of our stuff in this lifetime. So let's just concentrate on this lifetime and what you know and what you've experienced. So when somebody is experiencing when they're so young, experiences that tell them, I'm not good enough, or I'm not safe in the world, or I'm not supported in the world, that energy, since it came to be a part of your belief system so early on, stays with you. And it seems like it's just who you are. And that's why this soul contract stuff is so crazy. Because when people start looking at their soul contracts and they look at these negative energy, these negative beliefs, which I call seed thoughts, they've for years and years and years had these energies within them. They've been following these soul contracts of overgiving or martyrdom or whichever soul contract they have. And they don't realize that that's not who they really are. That's not their truth. That's not the light, the beauty within. That's just something they have to do to feel okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, actually. So, yeah,
Cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, so basically what we're saying here is that the soul in its purest form has probably, incarnated, but set up the situation prior to coming down, where it will have these seeds put in itself that it's not good, it's a victim, or it's not, we're not lovable or whatever. So that as it grows and it then becomes its truth, until that truth is broken away by the things that you're saying, that that is not the true essence of who you truly are. You are a soul. You are unconditional love, and none of these are their only truth because you make them truth. If that makes sense.
Think about how many people don't know that that's not the truth. They continually go through life feeling like they need to prove themselves. They need to prove their goodness or prove their value or earn love. And it's because they have these negative beliefs within themselves that they're lies, but it feels like this is really who they are, and this is what their life is, and this is how you go through life, and this is how you make it. A lot of people who all right, let's look at my favorite person to look at is Donald Trump, because he has to achieve certain things in order to feel good about himself, and that's very clear. You know who Donald Trump is, right?
Oh, yes. The Celebrity Apprentice, yeah, it's on over here as well, yeah.
Yes. So he has to be the biggest, the best, the most, have the most. These are soul contracts. I have to be number one is one of his soul contracts. And if he's not number one, he doesn't feel good enough. Isn't that weird? So this is why he walks around telling everybody Donald Trump is the best. He's literally just walking around telling everybody what his soul contracts are.
Yes, it's what they don't say as well sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the cool thing would be for one day for him to do the work to realize that he's wonderful. No matter if he is the best, number one, number two, or number 457. Because his soul, despite how he acts crazy and does all this crazy stuff, is just as beautiful and valuable and full of unconditional love as yours or mine or anybody else listening.
Unless the soul comes down, some souls come down and are completely disconnect, and will always be disconnect from who they are on purpose. I suppose there are other ways to look at this as well.
Yeah, I would say that's somebody who's totally covered and being run by their soul contracts. Those soul contracts absolutely disconnect you from your soul, because no longer are you experiencing something tapping into your soul, and your soul is going, it's lovely, you're wonderful, you're safe, keep going. You're tapping into all this other stuff, all these seed thoughts and soul contracts and energies. That's a huge disconnect. So as long as you are heeding your soul contracts, as long as they are guiding you, you have that disconnect. So I kind of don't agree with what you say, but I kind of agree with what you say. I'm just changing it around a little, that when you're saying a soul that's completely disconnected isn't light, I'm saying it's still this beautiful light. It's just covered with all this other stuff, so we can't see it. We can't access it.
Yes, and I agree with you there as well. I think what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying it very well, is that, for example, ISIS, right?
Yes.
Now, for me, my understanding of that would probably be that they have chosen to be completely disconnected from who they truly are in this life to do such things. Could a soul go throughout its life completely disconnected because it's chosen to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But look at the soul contracts they're following. In order to feel safe in the world, I have to hurt others. I have to take others down. I have to, you know what I mean? So that soul contract it's different from the normal soul contracts I deal with, but they have very particular soul contracts. They're still trying to feel safe in the world. That's why they're doing all this. They want to feel right, safe, good, whole, pure. You know, and they have seed thoughts that are saying, I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. I'm not lovable. I'm not safe. So they're following all these other soul contracts that say, well, what can I do to feel safe? I got to take everything that doesn't agree with me down. That's a soul contract.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's still there. I guess we totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, these aren't easy subjects, some of this stuff. And
No.
I'm not trying to go off key from what you specialize in, because it is all connected. It's all connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I get it. And it's one of the things that's allowed me to connect more into the world than I have before. Because when I can look at somebody who's ISIS, if I can look at them and understand why they're doing what they're doing at a more spiritual level, it helps me. It helps me get it. It helps me see what's really going on.
Yeah, and to see it from that different perspective, to make sense
Yeah.
of it as well. Yeah, because some of this stuff, you know, for someone who doesn't look into these subjects, it kind of doesn't make sense, and it can
Right.
anger people quite a bit, I would have thought. Yeah, I mean, because not everyone, just even a Joe Average, for example, whose life is very important, as I call him Joe Average, may never come across to look into these subjects, and
Right.
I wonder what they're missing out from.
Well, so it's a weird thing you bring up. What I found is they're few and far between in my world, but I know they're out there. Is that there are some souls that get, no joke, like a vacation lifetime. Like, so they have their stuff they're working on, but they came in there and they're not in this lifetime. There's not big evolution to achieve. They're just going to kind of go and do their thing. So there's that level of soul, the vacation soul. And then there's also the souls who come in and they definitely have their soul lessons that they're going to work, that they're supposed to work on in this lifetime, but they don't work on them at all. And I meet plenty of people who are working with me to understand themselves, who have those other souls in their life who aren't going to do the work in this lifetime. I mean, there's always free will, but a lot of them, it's like, okay, there's like this % of a chance that this soul's going to start working on themselves.
Yeah, and as you said there, they've got complete free will to make that choice. And
Total free will.
And they're still loved when they go back.
Yeah. It's just in this lifetime, they did not accomplish those, the checklist of what they had planned to do.
But that's what I like about your work, because it's very much present moment, very much in the now.
Yeah. And I've just found that if we focus too much on the future or past lives, if we look there, it's not as effective because we're so much more familiar with what's going on now that people can work more easily with it.
Yeah.
And also I find people will get a little caught up in their past life stuff. And I kind of want to remove all things that people can get caught up in so we can just do awareness of now.
Well, I think it can only serve if you can bring in some lost knowledge that will help in the moment now. If it's just always looking at like you say, past lives or whatever it may be in the spiritual arena, in a sense, I don't think it helps you make. What difference is it going to make in the moment? That's do you know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's totally exciting, cool, and can be really helpful stuff to look at. But in terms of dealing with, why do I pick the same icky man? Why can't I get the job of my dreams? Why am I not able to make money? Or why, whenever money comes in, does it go out immediately? Like, in terms of dealing with these things, why do I never feel like I'm going to be a success? It's better to focus on this stuff right here, right now.
But you still had to look at these other subjects to gain the knowledge that you got to bring forth. And say, I know you had a natural gift already, but you would have looked at some of these other subjects, which would have helped you to get where you've got now.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I did spend some time, there was a period of time where I was working with human soul contracts, and we would go back because so many soul lessons that we're working on, we've been working on for lots of lifetimes. So I would take a person back and we'd go back to this lifetime and see, well, okay, why didn't you get it in this lifetime? And we go back to different lifetimes and look. And then I found that really it's just faster and easier to just do this lifetime. And I'm kind of all about, you know what? If this person comes to me and they're not feeling awesome in their life or something's really troubling them, what is the most effective way that I can help them in the biggest way? So it ended up being, we honed in on this lifetime for this stuff.
And do you think that celebrity soul contracts are different in a sense? Do you think they have it a bit harder?
No, they're the same. The funny thing about soul contracts, working with soul contracts, is people come to me, they'll be like, what do I do? I can't get out of this. It's so hard. I don't find one to be more difficult than the other. I don't find, we've got Kim Kardashian or her father and he's transitioned, all this stuff going on. That is a difficult situation to be in the public eye like that. But it's just as difficult for Sally, who is destroyed because she was cheated on again. So it's all challenge. It's all, I don't feel like celebrities have it worse, actually. The hard part is that they have to go through it with everybody knowing, and the other people get to kind of hide and go through it, but that's actually part of what they're working on.
Right. And just before we move on as well, I mean, just some other sort of, our average soul contracts, I suppose, that if I was to say that. But for example, common, that's the one I'm looking for. Yeah, you see, if someone's, some people are addicted to how they look. And I'm not beautiful if I'm not super skinny, or unless I follow this regime, then no one's going to love me, in a sense. I mean, what's going? Is that still a victim consciousness in a deeper level?
No, it's not a victim. I mean, so basically, picture this person feels unlovable, or they feel unworthy, or they feel not good enough. Right? That's going to be one, or maybe they have all three of those negative beliefs within them. So they figured out, what can I do to feel lovable? Okay, so you could have a soul contract of skinny. You could have a soul contract of beauty, or some people will have it where I need to be seen. I need to be visible. And if everybody's noticing me, then I will feel good enough. And so that would be a soul contract of fame, or a soul contract of center of attention, depending on how it works. It's pretty crazy how they work. Anything that you feel that you need in order to be okay usually turns out to be a soul contract of some sort. Because the truth is, we're really okay already. We just have to believe we're okay.
That's the hard part, isn't it?
Yeah,
for some people,
or the beauty part, that how you brought up somebody who needs to be skinny or beautiful or makeup or whatever it is in order to feel good about themselves. That could also be a soul contract of control. I need to control everything about me to feel safe in the world.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different ways that it works out, and it depends on the soul lesson. It depends on how did this person choose to put their whole thing together. These aren't conscious choices we're making, but somewhere along the line, so-and-so said, I need to have control, I need to be on time everywhere I go, and I need to come through on my word. And, they've got these soul contracts now biting them in the bum because they're saying yes to everybody and they're too tired, but they can't not because they have to come through on their word. So it starts getting a little complicated.
It doesn't. It's so easy for us to say, well, this is wrong, this is right, and I've stopped doing that now because that's judgment.
Yeah, and there's no need. The coolest thing, there's like, I guess in a way we kind of want to judge, but it's a good judgment. Like, oh, yes, I found that soul contract. I found one. That is awesome because that means you're starting to dismantle this whole system that you've held within you since you were really, really little and started believing you weren't good enough or you weren't safe or whatever you started believing. So in a way, I kind of like for people to judge. It's maybe judge isn't the word. Maybe it's investigate, to find them. Because every time you find one, you are becoming aware of what isn't really you.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, what about people who choose lives as an escort, for example? I mean, what? And I'm not going to judge it as wrong or right. I mean, no, because that's their choice. But what are they being taught? What are they teaching themselves?
You know, I've never worked with anybody, so let me just think for a moment. So it could be around safety and security. I don't feel safe in the world. I don't feel safe, supported, protected. So I'm going to do whatever I have to do. So that could be a survival soul contract. Do whatever I have to do to bring in the money to feel safe, supported, protected. I will support myself. Does that make sense?
It does.
It could, I mean, and that's kind of a different way of going than I believe I'm not good enough. So since I believe I'm not good enough, I'm going to be in situations that show me I'm not good enough over and over. The soul contract would be victim. There.
Yeah.
I'll be victim. And if I'm victim, someone somewhere might see that I'm a victim and then come in, swoop in and help me, rescue me, and make me feel like a good person, make me feel supported. Make sense?
It does, and that's with no judgment. I say any of this.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah, these are all just crazy ways. There's so many different ways that we decide to learn about our value, about our light.
I know that was a bit off key there, but it's just it just popped into my head. I was thinking, well, just
I've never looked at that before, but
okay.
I liked it. It was a good one to look at.
Well, let's look at the most common one then as well. Money.
Money.
Because that affects a lot of people.
I know, but money is not about money. I rarely find someone who has a soul contract specifically about money. What I find is people have soul contracts around support. Money is a form of support. It is the clearest form of support that we can think of. It's the obvious form of support. Ooh, I can't do this. I need money to do it. So a lot of us focus in on money, but you'll see that people who struggle with money also struggle with having people to rely on, the universe taking care of them, feeling trust in others, because it's kind of a universal theme. The money is just one aspect of that piece. So somebody who is struggling with money will most likely have a seed thought, that negative belief of I'm not safe, supported, protected. And they'll also probably have I'm not good enough as well as another negative belief within themselves. And then they'll find tons of ways to make themselves feel better about it. You could have a soul contract that says, once I make $100,000 in my life, I will feel safe. And yet what happens with that one is when you make the $100,000 in your life, now you're like, oh my God, what if the $100,000 goes away? Oh no. And so then you change it, you up it. All right, now I need to make 200,000. It's an ever expanding thing, in fact. Does that make sense?
It does. And how would you cure that then in a way? How can you help ease it?
So the way to do it is by working on changing the belief. So changing the belief that you're not safe, supported, protected. The way to do it is not by going, all right, I'm not going to worry about money anymore. I'm not going to care how much money I make. Or the person who has a sugar addiction because that's their comfort and that's what makes them feel like safe. And they say, okay, I'm not going to have sugar anymore. I'm going to force myself not to eat sugar. It's all force. It's all force. So the way you make the change is not through behavior change. Behavior change is not at the soul level. Behavior change is just me saying, I'm going to make myself do this now instead of this. Somebody who has a soul contract where they don't speak up, and they say, all right, they don't speak up so they can feel safe, right? They say, all right, I know I have the soul contract. I'm going to start speaking up. Doesn't work, because they still have that belief within them that says you're not safe. Don't do it. You're not safe. So I would be putting myself in conflict with myself over and over again every time I just tried to do the opposite of my soul contract. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the place to go then is to look at the belief and start working on changing that belief. And the nice thing about changing a belief, let's say I have a belief of I'm not safe, supported, protected, and I come in. When I form that belief, I'm at 100% on that belief. I 100% totally believe it. As you start shifting that belief, because beliefs change incrementally based on your experience. So as that belief starts shifting and you go down to only 90% of myself believes that, and 10% of myself goes, hey, I think I might be kind of protected here. I might be kind of supported. That starts showing up in your life with different experiences, different people coming in, and you haven't even shifted the entire belief. You've just changed 10% of it. So when you start believing you're safe, supported, and protected, then you don't have to make $100,000 anymore. You don't have to worry about that, because you know the universe comes through for you. So all that outside stuff, all those soul contracts start to go away because you believe differently and you approach the world differently.
And then the contract's over in a sense, I suppose, and you're moving on to the next one, are you?
No, actually the cool thing is you don't need to address the soul contracts. You don't need to address them. Picture, so it's like, here's your seed thought, I'm not safe, supported, protected, and you've got a soul contract of independence. I have to do everything myself so I don't rely on anyone. Control, I'm going to control it so I feel safe. You know, you've got all these soul contracts stuck to it. As that seed thought starts to disintegrate, there's nothing for those energies of the soul contracts to stick to. As I start believing that I'm safe in the world, that I am supported by the universe, by others, by God, as I start really believing that, then I'm going to find it easier to trust others. I'm not going to have to do everything myself anymore. It literally goes away. And I know that sounds crazy, but the work is just on that belief. And the nice thing is all of those soul contracts that are attached, they go away too. It's like, since they're all connected to each other, you don't work on one and then you go to the next one. You just work on the belief.
I guess as well, you know, the power of thoughts are powerful. So, you know, be careful of what you think.
Yeah, but a lot of times what you think is related to what you believe. Right? So if I believe I'm not safe in the world, what I think is going to relate to that. So even saying be careful of that, know that there's some point where that's just related to that belief. The cool thing is watching your thoughts change as your belief changes.
What about someone who's lost someone, in a sense, and if you've lost someone that's passed away when you were young, or whatever the situation may be, right? Do you think there's contracts made there that one where you've said that I'm going to pass away at this age, and this will be just at a key time for you where it will affect you the most to get the most out of the experience? I mean, have you come across that?
So I would say, like we were talking about before, it's not totally planned out like that in my understanding, but the passing away of that person will end up being at the perfect time to kind of solidify that the person who's still alive, they're learning, or what they were learning, what they're working on, what their soul lesson is. So there is that divine timing thing that goes on. And a lot of times both animals and humans choose their passing to be timed perfectly like that, to assist. So even though they're passing over, they are still helping that human learn a great soul lesson.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And
I know. And it's really, it's easier for me when I think about it just between you and I, or me and my husband, or my brother, like one-on-one, or my dog and I. But there's a soul contract between you and every animal. There are relationship soul contracts, which means I'm learning something from you, you're learning something from me, between you and every single person you come in contact with, including people that you don't meet, including an animal that you see on TV and are moved by, including someone, Tom Cruise in a movie. All of that, there's soul contracts there too.
So between me and you, right, at this moment, there was a soul contract to do this.
Yeah. And I'm gaining something from this, and you're gaining something from this. Yeah. We're helping each other. We're assisting each other.
Okay, no, I can go with that. That's really, really cool. So even if you bumped into someone that was just very short, that's a soul contract as well.
Yep. Now there are bigger, we're talking relationship soul contracts instead of the kind we've been talking about, but there are bigger ones, like the one I have with my husband is obviously going to be a big one.
Yeah.
The one with the person you bump into while you're walking down the street and you never see again, that will probably be a smaller one, but most likely in some form it's going to support the soul contract that you're already working on.
Yeah, yeah.
I know. Very complicated. But the main thing, the main takeaway is you're learning in every interaction.
I giggle because I just think, not because it's difficult to get my head around, it's just incredible.
It is crazy. I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's incredible stuff.
But it's cool. The coolest thing is to see somebody kind of start deconstructing this system they've been working with and realizing who they really are, and then approaching their life in a totally different way and finding like they like themselves and they're happy and their job is changing and they're passionate. Like, it is so cool to see people realize the truth about who they are.
Yes, absolutely. And do you think by looking at your soul contract as well, is that the same as finding your life's mission by going down this work as well?
What it does is it takes away all the clutter that often gets in the way of somebody discovering what truly makes them happy. So if I never speak up, if I don't feel safe in the world, or if I want to be invisible, or if I have to spend all my time being number one, whatever the soul contract is, my energy is being devoted to those things. Really hard for me to also find what I absolutely love and have to do with my life, because I've got to do I have to do these other things to maintain my okayness. So when all those other things that I have to do are out of the way, you're right. That's when people start going, oh, I love this. I'm going here. And, oh, I'm breaking up with him. I'm getting together with her. Whatever it is, when all that stuff is cleared out. And I have to say, it's not even when all that stuff is cleared out. When you start clearing it all out, that's when people start realizing what they really love. Yeah.
And there's you can't cheat the system in a way. You can't break a soul contract, can you?
And everybody and in fact, when I first heard about soul contracts, that's what I thought you could. I was corrected by the animals that you can't, because it's there to point out a lesson you have to learn. So if you just remove that energy, you still hold the other energy, which is the lesson and the negative belief within yourself. You're just going to attract back in another soul contract, because you have to learn in order to evolve. So you can't break it, you can't alter it, you can't change it. You just got to learn.
Right. Okay. And obviously we're almost at the end of this interview, and it's gone so quick. I know it really has gone quick, this one. And it's been really fascinating as well. But what would you say is the most important message of your book?
I would say the most important message is that all this other stuff that's around, the places where people think they're blocked, why aren't I happy? What isn't working? Why can't I achieve this? It's all energy that is not who we really are. And that when we clear that away, we get to see the brilliance. I call it the brilliance within. That we are all these wonderful, light, loving, worthy, deserving, safe, protected, happy, healthy beings. And that all the other stuff is just stuff we put there so that we could learn.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah, yeah. And okay, so if someone wants to get in contact with yourself as well, what's the easiest way? How could they do that?
Easiest way would be going to my website, DanielleMacKinnon.com, or going to Facebook, because I'm on Facebook all the time. But probably easiest is my website.
Okay, well, we've linked that up throughout the interview as well. And I just want to say, Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun. You asked some crazy questions. I love it.
Crazy is what we are. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.